Clint Eastwood paused his Oscar speech. The reason left everyone in the theater stunned. Imagine a man whose every word carries authority, whose presence commands attention, suddenly halting mid-sentence as if the very air around him had shifted. What could possibly make a figure like him, someone who has faced every imaginable stage of life and art, stop so abruptly in the world's most glamorous spotlight? The audience held its breath, caught between anticipation and disbelief, hearts beating faster without knowing why. Behind the curtain, a moment unfolded that no one in that room was prepared to witness, a moment so sudden, so raw, it forced even the legend to step back. And in that pause, there was something profoundly human, vulnerability, a reminder that even those we see as larger than life can face the unexpected, the shocking, the life-altering. It is in these pauses, these unseen shifts, that the truth of experience reveals itself. The 77th Academy Awards were unfolding with all the grandeur and glitter one could imagine, a night where history and spectacle intertwined in a delicate electric tension. Every seat in the Dolby Theater felt charged with expectation, every flash of a camera slicing through the air like a heartbeat. Celebrities in their finest attire whispered, laughed, and adjusted themselves, yet beneath the polished surface there was a current of nervous energy, the subtle hum of lives teetering between triumph and disappointment. And there, standing among this constellation of talent, was Clint Eastwood, a man whose name alone carries decades of cinematic mastery, whose presence commands respect in ways that words can scarcely capture. He had already walked these stages before, holding Oscars, accepting accolades that marked the peaks of a career that spanned generations, yet tonight was different. Tonight, every eye was on him, not merely for his past victories, but because the story he carried, one of resilience, artistry, and human imperfection, felt alive in that room. Could a man so seasoned, so controlled, be vulnerable even here, in the glare of global attention? The audience didn't yet know it, but something unseen was stirring, a quiet disruption creeping into the carefully orchestrated rhythm of celebration. The theater itself seemed to hold its breath, as if aware that the familiar patterns of applause and speech could suddenly fracture. The anticipation built almost imperceptibly at first, a shuffled cue, a whispered direction, a glance exchanged between stagehands, signals too subtle for most, but enough to set a seasoned observer's instincts on edge. Clint's calm composure contrasted sharply with the undercurrent of tension, creating a duality that made the eventual pause feel both inevitable and impossible at once. And in that contrast, in the intersection between expectation and unpredictability, the true weight of the night began to crystallize. Every moment, every sound, every flicker of light was charged with the possibility of disruption, and the audience, blissfully unaware, waited for the story that would redefine how they remembered Clint Eastwood and how he remembered himself on the stage that had always demanded perfection. And then it happened. Clint Eastwood, mid-sentence, froze. The words he had rehearsed, the cadence honed over decades, hung suspended in the air, as if the theater itself had tilted on its axis. A subtle tension rippled outward. Audience members exchanged uncertain glances. A nervous cough echoed, but no one moved. How could a man who had directed, acted, and commanded some of the most intense scenes in cinematic history suddenly pause on the world's grandest stage? Behind him, somewhere just beyond the curtain, something had shifted, an intrusion into the carefully choreographed rhythm of the evening. It was invisible to most, yet in that instant it held the power to arrest the attention of everyone present. For Clint, every instinct honed over decades screamed to assess, to respond, to navigate this sudden rupture. And yet, his pause was not panic, it was presence. It was the clarity that comes when life interrupts art, reminding even the most seasoned that control is never absolute. What struck the theater in that suspended moment was not just surprise, but empathy, a shared human recognition that even the legends we idolize are subject to the unpredictable, the shocking, the immediate demands of reality. That pause, brief yet infinite in tension, transformed the room. The audience, the cameras, the glittering expectations all became secondary to one undeniable truth. Life, unannounced and raw, had stepped onto the stage, and Clint Eastwood, in his quiet mastery, had stopped to meet it. The reason for Clint's pause was not part of the evening's script, not a moment anyone could have anticipated. Behind the curtain stood someone who had shaped more than just his career, someone whose presence carried decades of history, shared triumphs, and quiet, enduring loyalty. Dorothy Abrams. She had been by his side through projects that defined a generation of cinema, through late nights on set when fatigue and doubt threatened to overshadow ambition. Her guidance had often been invisible, subtle yet profound, a steady hand in the chaos of Hollywood's glare. Tonight, her appearance was unexpected, unannounced, and deeply personal. Why would her presence stop a man like Clint, a figure known for composure, decisiveness, and unflinching self-command? Because what she represented transcended accolades and applause. It was the affirmation of a shared journey, a testament to years of integrity, courage, and connection that few ever saw. In that suspended moment, the theater's glamour and public scrutiny collided with private history, reminding everyone that even the most legendary lives are entwined with unseen bonds.
The pause was not hesitation, it was recognition, respect, and the acknowledgement of influence far greater than any award could measure. Clint's moral compass, his careful calibration between artistry and humanity, demanded this moment. And as the audience watched, unaware of its depth, he demonstrated something far more compelling than mastery of stage or screen. He revealed the quiet, unspoken truth that even legends are guided by relationships, by gratitude, and by the unseen threads that shape who they truly are. In that suspended moment, Clint Eastwood's response was immediate yet measured, a blend of instinct and profound presence. His eyes shifted, scanning beyond the cameras, beyond the applause, toward the unexpected presence that had drawn him into stillness. There was no panic, no faltering, instead a quiet decisiveness, the kind that comes from decades of facing unpredictable circumstances both on set and in life. A simple nod, a subtle gesture of acknowledgement rippled through the space, carrying weight far beyond what anyone could see. Could the audience grasp the gravity of that connection? Few could, yet the tension became palpable, an unspoken dialogue that transcended language, a bridge between public spectacle and private truth. Around him, reactions began to unfold, murmurs of curiosity, flashes of concern, eyes widening in disbelief. Yet Clint remained anchored, showing a mastery not of speech or ceremony, but of empathy itself. His body, poised yet responsive, demonstrated that true authority often comes from calm understanding rather than command. For those watching, both on stage and in the seats, it was impossible not to feel the human pulse beneath the legend, to recognize that even a figure so exalted could confront life's surprises with compassion and clarity. And as the moment stretched, suspended between expectation and reality, it left a question lingering in everyone's mind. How would a man like Clint, embodying both heroism and humanity, navigate the next instant when the unknown demanded more than skill? It demanded heart.
The pause was not hesitation, it was recognition, respect, and the acknowledgement of influence far greater than any award could measure. Clint's moral compass, his careful calibration between artistry and humanity, demanded this moment. And as the audience watched, unaware of its depth, he demonstrated something far more compelling than mastery of stage or screen. He revealed the quiet, unspoken truth that even legends are guided by relationships, by gratitude, and by the unseen threads that shape who they truly are. In that suspended moment, Clint Eastwood's response was immediate yet measured, a blend of instinct and profound presence. His eyes shifted, scanning beyond the cameras, beyond the applause, toward the unexpected presence that had drawn him into stillness. There was no panic, no faltering, instead a quiet decisiveness, the kind that comes from decades of facing unpredictable circumstances, both on set and in life. A simple nod, a subtle gesture of acknowledgement, rippled through the space, carrying weight far beyond what anyone could see. Could the audience grasp the gravity of that connection? Few could, yet the tension became palpable, an unspoken dialogue that transcended language, a bridge between public spectacle and private truth. Around him, reactions began to unfold, murmurs of curiosity, flashes of concern, eyes widening in disbelief, yet Clint remained anchored, showing a mastery not of speech or ceremony, but of empathy itself. His body, poised yet responsive, demonstrated the true authority often comes from calm understanding rather than command. For those watching, both on stage and in the seats, it was impossible not to feel the human pulse beneath the legend, to recognize that even a figure so exalted could confront life's surprises with compassion and clarity. And as the moment stretched, suspended between expectation and reality, it left a question lingering in everyone's mind. How would a man like Clint, embodying both heroism and humanity, navigate the next instant when the unknown demanded more than skill, it demanded heart? The pause ended, but the resonance of that moment lingered, echoing in ways that applause could never capture. Clint Eastwood took a measured breath, resumed his speech, yet every word carried a weight that transcended the ceremony. The presence that had frozen him, the quiet, steadfast figure who had shaped his journey, was acknowledged not with grand gestures, but with the depth of recognition only decades of shared history could create. In that subtle exchange, the audience glimpsed something rare, the reminder that loyalty, gratitude, and human connection often hold more power than accolades, more impact than the brightest spotlight. Could the room truly understand what had just unfolded? Perhaps not entirely, yet the energy shifted, a collective sense of empathy threading through the seats, as though the theater itself had absorbed a lesson in presence and awareness. For Clint, it was a reaffirmation of a guiding principle that had always steered him. Success is hollow without acknowledgement of those who walk beside you, who lift, steady, and inspire you when the cameras are off and the applause fades. And for Dorothy, the unexpected acknowledgement validated years of dedication, a quiet testament that influence need not clamor for recognition to shape destiny. It was a moment of mutual respect, of silent celebration, and of emotional closure that neither required drama nor words beyond the ones already spoken. The lesson, however, extends beyond the stage. In life, it is the gestures of attention, the pauses to honor loyalty, and the courage to act with integrity that define true legacy. Clint's example became more than cinematic lore. It became a mirror, inviting reflection on how we recognize, value, and honor the people who shape our own journeys. And as the night carried on, the story of a single pause endured, leaving both awe and a quiet inspiration that lingered far longer than any award ever could. When we step back from the glamour and the applause, what Clint Eastwood's pause teaches us resonates far beyond Hollywood, far beyond any stage or award. It is a quiet, profound reminder that even the most celebrated among us are guided by unseen hands, by the people who invest in our growth, our courage, and our integrity. How often do we move through life focused on our own achievements, our own agendas, and fail to recognize those who shape us quietly, steadfastly, without expectation of recognition? Clint's moment reminds us that acknowledgement, even a brief pause to honor someone's influence, carries immeasurable weight. It is a gesture of humility and gratitude that transforms not only the recipient, but ourselves, anchoring us in the human truths that success alone cannot convey. We can see that greatness is not simply measured by trophies or accolades, but by the moral compass that directs how we honor relationships and act in moments of unexpected significance. What would our own lives look like if we paused, not out of fear, but out of awareness, to acknowledge those who have guided, supported, or challenged us when we needed it most? Who in our lives has been a quiet force, shaping our decisions, our confidence, our capacity to endure? Reflection invites us to consider these questions and, more importantly, to act upon them, to make the invisible visible through gratitude, recognition, and heartfelt connection. The lesson extends beyond individual moments into the patterns of everyday life. In our workplaces, families, and friendships, opportunities appear to pause, to check in, to express thanks or support. How many of these moments do we overlook, caught in schedules, ambitions, or distractions? Clint's response teaches that impact is cumulative and relational. It is in the recognition of others, the willingness to step out of the performance of life, that we cultivate influence, trust, and lasting meaning. I invite you right now to consider someone who has quietly guided or inspired you, perhaps a mentor, a friend, a teacher, or a family member. What would it mean to pause, even briefly, to honor them, to reflect publicly or privately on the ways their presence has shaped your journey? Share your story, share your gratitude, because when we reflect and act on these connections, we create ripples that extend far beyond what we can see, nurturing a culture of respect, empathy, and shared human legacy. And in doing so, we carry forward the truth that Clint Eastwood embodied in that unforgettable pause, that recognition, loyalty, and heartfelt acknowledgement are among the most powerful forces we can summon in life.